Hello and welcome to another edition of Talk About Tomorrow. And today we're fortunate enough to be in the Look Algarve TV studio. So thank you very much. We're loving their new studio here. But in addition to this, we're incredibly excited because today we are talking to Paul Clark. I first spoke to Paul for an interview in 2018, and it still remains with me as one of my favorite interviews I've ever done because it's just such an amazing story. Paul is a stuntman, a martial arts expert, and he's appeared in movies with such greats as Jackie Chan, Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, and Adrian Brody. But excitingly for us, he's also been in the latest Mission Impossible film. So we're going to get all of that story from him today. And along with that, hopefully some little bits of nuggets of information about one of my favorite film stars, Tom Cruise. So welcome, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so in 2018, I spoke to you, and at that time, you were actually in China.
Right.
We spoke on WeChat, which was, I think, the only medium.
It was, because of the censorship and all of that. So I had to guide you through how to download it, I think, through email first.
I think so, yeah.
And then we could freely talk.
Yeah.
WeChat's like the Chinese version of WhatsApp.
Yeah. And at that time, you were actually on set in this film studio in China. But first of all, before we get to that, how did you, a lad who grew up in Lagos, end up in China shooting movies? Can you explain?
Okay. I grew up here from the age of 5, then went back to the UK to do my A-levels. Then I took a gap year, and that gap year, I had started training martial arts already at the age of like 11, 12, doing kickboxing and karate. And I was into two things. I was into like art and design tech, and I've got, an artistic side to me, but that was being expressed more through the Kung Fu and the martial arts. And that was kind of what was really in my heart. So I wanted to study it further and study it seriously. So I took a gap year to China first. This was in 1999. I was 18 at the time. And I went there, couldn't speak a word of Chinese, had a phrase book. This is going back, 99, China was just really opening up its doors to the rest of the world. And it was still very, very Chinese, and no one spoke English. And I arrived there, and I was doing an exchange program in a place called Wuishan. So it's in Fujian province. It's kind of on the coastline, just, beneath Shanghai. And absolutely beautiful spot, like beautiful, the tea fields and the hills and the rivers and everything that you imagine about Chinese kind of landscape. And it was really the middle of nowhere. I had to take, I arrived there on Chinese New Year, got to missed my flight. Then I got to the train station. Everything was booked out. Ended up having to take buses, trains, paying someone to drive me. It was just such a mission. It took me like 4 days to take this journey. Ended up. And that's where I met my first Chinese Kung Fu teacher. He was called Jason Lee. And he was a young, very talented guy, had been training at the Shaolin Temple. So Shaolin Temple is like a Buddhist martial arts monastery in Henan province in central China. And it's like the birthplace of Kung Fu. And it's kind of a thing in China where families send their boys to Shaolin. It's a bit like sending them to the army or something to toughen up. And they go to do this Kung Fu training where they wake up at 4 a.m. They run up a mountain, and they do, 8 hours of training a day, and it's all super disciplined and everything. And so I met him there in Wuishan. He then took me back to his home, Dongsang Island, and it was this tiny island off the coast of Fujian province. And I was the second foreigner to ever go to that island. And when I arrived there, I've kind of clocked the situation. It was a bit of an Indiana Jones type moment where there were no taxis, no cars. It was like you're on the back of motorbikes, and I'm there with my rucksack on the back of this motorbike, and this guy was just so happy to have me on his motorbike, and I paid him, it's like next to nothing, it was probably a couple of euros, and he was just like, for him, that was so much money. And we're like driving into this village that I've been given this like directions to get to go to Jason's hometown. And we're driving along this dirt road, and there's this guy on a bicycle coming the other way, this Chinese guy, like with like, you know, the hat and everything. And he's like on his bike. And he looks at me and he clocks that I'm a foreigner. And then he's like watching me until he just goes off the road, like into the ditch. like couldn't keep my eyes off of me. And then he's like left his bike in the ditch, and he's just like got to this town. And within 20 minutes, everyone in the whole village was around me, and they're all just like, look at his hair and his blonde hair and his blue eyes. And they all thought that I was the same guy that had been there 10 years ago, because to them, all Westerners look the same. They can't tell the difference. They're not used to seeing our faces, so we all look the same, just like, you know, blue eyes, white skin. And I stayed there for a couple of months, and my bed was just like 5 planks of wood with a mosquito net. I remember one time I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was just like giants, like tarantula-sized spiders, like on the net. It was properly in the tropics. It was like subtropical, south of China. And the funniest thing is that we were doing this training every day. It was like really hardcore training. I absolutely loved it though. And Jason, one day we were eating dinner with his family, and he's just giggling to himself. I'm like, what's so funny? And he said, the next door neighbor, like when his kid misbehaves, he tells him like, you know, don't misbehave or the foreigner's going to come around and get you. So I became like a kind of like childhood, like boogeyman story, like the blue-eyed ghost. They call us Lao Wai, which means like Gui, or like an old outsider, or like a ghost or something like that. And but China's changed. It's changed a lot since then. You know, I was there for almost 20 years.
But your hero growing up was Jackie Chan.
Yeah, right.
And this is another amazing element. This is why you became interested in this, was because you were given, or you watched, I think, in Luge Cinema, didn't you, a Jackie Chan film?
The first Jackie Chan movie, yeah. I think it was Rumble in the Bronx. And I was not a super athletic kid. I was a bit of a nerd. Was always kind of like the last kid to be picked in gym class, was terrible at football and things like that, just wasn't very sporty. But I saw this thing, and it was something else. It wasn't athletic. It was like, yeah, it was something kind of very spiritual about it that just drew me in. And I just started practicing by myself. I'd watch like eventually got his stuff on VHS, on videotapes, and the fight scenes, they'd be like worn out because I'd just rewind and play the fights over and over again, and try and imitate the moves. And then I taught myself how to, you know, get the splits, and the flexibility in order to do all of the moves and stuff in Kung Fu is very extreme. You can't really perform it unless you have a full split kind of in every direction. So I was just doing that every day, stretching before school, after school, and just on my own. Yeah, self-taught in the beginning, a lot of, and then finally, yeah, went to China for that gap year. And I went to Shaolin Temple, and I was there for a couple of weeks, but I found the training to be not scientific, like they were overtraining. And then I went to the Beijing Sports University, where all the athletes train, where they have like their Olympic team and stuff, for all the different martial arts. And that to me was more scientific. So I ended up going to Beijing Sports University. I went there in 2001, and I did a diploma in Chinese martial arts. And that was amazing. There was like 20, 25 foreigners, all total martial art nerds. And we just, you know, ate, slept martial arts for those like 2.5 years I was there. You know, day in, day out training. Yeah.
And how did that take you into movies?
Into the movies. So casting directors would come to the university because they knew there were foreigners there who were training martial arts. And because Westerners always play the bad guys in Chinese movies, if you've ever watched any like old Hong Kong films, you'll always see some like kind of funky looking like white dudes with like funny hairstyles and like silly clothes and stuff, and like with a lot of bad overacting in, you know, even back in the old Bruce Lee movies, who play the bad guys, like the henchmen and the villains and stuff. They're always Westerners. So that's how it started. The casting directors would come there, and we did a few auditions, and I did a few like yeah, kind of like B-movie type things. But the first big one was Chinese Zodiac with Jackie Chan. And that's what really kicked off my career, obviously, to get to work with him.
So explain that moment when you first came face to face with like your childhood hero and the guy that had first got you into this world of martial arts.
It was very surreal. So we were shooting this, the film Chinese Zodiac. There's scenes that are shot in Paris. So there's a big chateau. It's about these 12 heads of the Zodiac, which were stolen by different during colonial times, and Jackie Chan's trying to return them back to China. And there's like the head of the rooster and the snake and of the Chinese Zodiac. I met him. They flew us. We auditioned in Beijing with the stunt team, and the first scenes were all being shot in France. So there were scenes shot in China as well, but they wanted to do the ones in France first. So I didn't get to meet Jackie until we flew over to Paris, and we were in Chinatown. And it was they had us staying in this tiny little hotel. It was so small that even in the corridors, you'd have to kind of like walk like side by side like this to get past people. It was it wasn't a hotel. It was more like a motel or like a B&B or something. And we were like, this can't be the movie. Like it should be in some fancy hotel, right? We later learned that it was a friend of Jackie's, because he didn't want the paparazzi and all of that knowing that he was filming. It was all top secret for this. It was like the movie's a sequel to a movie called Armor of God, which was a massive fan favorite in the 80s. So he didn't want anyone knowing that he was filming there. So hence staying in this tiny rundown place in the middle of Chinatown. And as soon as we arrived, we'd been on the plane. It was like all night, and we were met by a couple of guys from the stunt team. Like, are you hungry? Sure. So we went through the hotel to the back of this like little restaurant, and we sat down, and I'm sat with the fight coordinator, stunt coordinator, like a couple of guys from the stunt team. They're all super friendly, all spoke good English, but we're speaking in Chinese as well. And somebody's in the kitchen making loads of noise, like banging pots and pans and stuff. And eventually the chef comes out the kitchen. He's like got an apron on, and he like throws down like noodles. They're here for you. And it was Jackie Chan. And and he was so. It was just so bizarre. It was so weird. He was so friendly and so genuine. And the restaurant's open to the public, and people don't know he's there. They don't, and they just see a Chinese dude in an apron cooking food. And it was funny, like sometimes you get somebody's reaction, they'd be like, oh my God, is that Jackie Chan? No, it can't be. What? Yeah, it's just so low key. The whole thing about it was super, super low key. And Jackie's like that. He doesn't care. He'll talk to an extra, producer, director, famous actor, not famous, doesn't care, like all the same. Just he's more about that, just human connection. And he's work hard, play hard. That's how I would describe Jackie Chan. He jokes around and plays around, but on set it's all very serious. And then afterwards, he's like taking us out for dinner almost every night. And that's when we relax and play and have fun. But on set, very, very focused, just like Tom. Tom is the same. Tom on set, he demands that everybody, with Tom on mission, one of the first things he said to us, he said, you're all experts in your field. That's why you're here. But this film is the most important film that you've ever made. And that's the only way that he keeps on being able to break, through into better and more innovative action. And you can't just sit back and be comfortable. This has to be the most difficult thing you've ever done, the hardest thing you've ever worked on. And he is at the forefront of that.
Wow.
Tom doesn't make anyone do anything he wouldn't do himself, especially with the stunts, and he does all his stunts himself. So there's a funny Tom and Jackie Chan, very similar personalities and very similar in what they're trying to bring to the audience. I think Jackie Chan had the heyday, like computer effects and stuff, where it was all practical and real. And now we've had this oversaturation of computer effects in movies and in action films where people are like, it doesn't really feel the same, because actually, nobody's in danger because it's all green screen and CGI, and so the thrill is kind of gone. And I think Tom, he's really pushing back hard against that, back to practical effects. And a big part of selling the Mission Impossible films are the making of. So they make sure that they release all the makings of pre-release of the film to get people excited about the stunts and to see that it's all real and it's all him that's doing it. Yeah.
So before you got involved in the sort of European films, I think when I spoke to you, you were in China. You were in this massive studios, which I found fascinating, and they call it China Woods.
Yeah.
But you said it's like they've recreated sort of downtown Shanghai.
Yeah. So it's this film town, and it's kind of just outside of Shanghai. I mean, say just outside of Shanghai. China's so big; it's like a couple of hours on high-speed rail. So it's probably maybe 1,000 kilometers outside. But and it's the Chinese Hollywood. You'd have like the big part of it is obviously all the films being made there, all the sets and stuff, but also the tourism, people coming. They have theme park, like a big theme park there and stuff like that. But very bizarre town. I was there on a project called Huoyanja, and it was a martial arts show. I was playing like the main villain in that, and had pages and pages of Chinese lines to learn. And I can't read Chinese. I can't read the characters, so I have to translate it all into pinyin. So pinyin is using our alphabet to like phonetically sound out the words, and it's literally just pure memorization. Like the words, they don't really make any sense to you. And a lot of, especially when you're talking, I had like scenes talking about like laws and I was like this French diplomat that was like running the French concession in Shanghai. So I was like, had all of this like legal terms I had to like spout out and everything in Chinese. And I had this process of memorization, and they just give you, Chinese movies are not very organized. They're changing the scripts all the time, changing the scenes all the time. Like you kind of like got to really be able to work on the fly. But one rule I had to have is that give me the dialogue the night before. And I had this system of I'd memorize it through the evening, and then right before bed, I'd have to read through those lines. They'd have to be in my head. And if I slept on it, when I woke up in the morning, they'd be there. They'd just be there on the tip of my tongue. If I didn't get that sleep, no way. And it was a way that I kind of programmed my subconscious, because it was just pages and pages of Chinese lines, and there was fight scenes in that as well, but it really was the dialogue that was the toughest one on that show, because I was the main villain, so I had just tons of scenes, tons of dialogue.
And then from there, you'd obviously met your wife, Ashley, and
Ashley. This was kind of before my career took off. So Ashley, met her in 2009. So that's going way back. The first Jackie Chan film was around that time actually, 2011. We filmed Chinese Zodiac. It was end of 2010, 2011. So I just met Ashley, and I was teaching English at that time, and she was a manager in a English school, but it was like one-to-one tuition, kids and adults, just for people to brush up on their English, which is a big business in China. Obviously, they're all trying to learn English. This was back then. And that's where I met her.
You had your daughter Maya,
2013, yeah.
And you told me at the time, because in fact that was the reason we met, was because our daughters were in the same class, weren't they? At school.
Yeah.
And you said the pollution was just so bad, it was like you could hardly go outside.
Yeah, so it got bad. It got bad just before mine was born. I would say pre-2010, the air quality in China and Beijing wasn't too bad. Like you'd have a lot of blue skies, you wouldn't really notice it. And then 2011, 2012, 2013, we'd get this mist coming down over the city, and sometimes it would be almost so bad you couldn't drive. Like it would be we'd had a few days that were total whiteout, so you couldn't barely see more than a few meters. That was when it's at its worst. And then the government has to just shut down all the factories and everything and just let it clear. We had air purifiers in the house running 24/7. I had to tape up all the windows. We're going outside. If it was bad, you'd have to have a mask. I remember I was in the gym working out with a mask on, but like a proper mask, not like a COVID mask or something, but like with it's completely sealed on your face with like filters and everything. And I'm there and I'm training. I'm like, what am I doing? You know, it was like we're living on Mars or something.
Yeah.
It just didn't.
Post-apocalypse sort of
Yeah,
type
exactly.
thing, yeah.
Mad Max
Yeah.
type thing. And I've still got friends there that live in Beijing, and they said that it's got better now, but it kind of peaked when I was there. And that was a big part of what pushed me out was the pollution. It just wasn't the place to raise a family. I think the big city as well and all the traffic and all of that, we were kind of looking for an exit. And originally the idea was to move to a smaller coastal town. All the auditions and everything are in Beijing. So I'd have to be kind of close to Beijing. And then eventually I got a project. I worked in Into the Badlands. That was a martial arts TV show in Ireland. That was through a fight coordinator, Rudolph Verba, very good friend of mine, fight coordinator on mission. And he was on a film in China called Azura with Damien Walters, who's a parkour expert, very kind of well-known from YouTube and all of that. And they were filming this Chinese fantasy film. And it was a huge movie, like $100 million project. And that's where I met Ruda, and he came over with Damien. They were doing all the action, and it was a mix of parkour and gymnastics and acrobatics and martial arts and everything. Very ambitious project, a lot of very difficult wire work and stuff. And he said, yeah, I'm doing Into the Badlands in Ireland. So that was my bridge over to Europe. And then we were thinking, well, let's just try and move out of China. Then I did Kingsman after that.
That was with Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, Ray Fiennes. Yeah, so we had this fight scene with Ray Fiennes. He is a very intense guy, very like everything about, the tiny details of everything has to be correct. And he's just like, yeah, no, if I'm aiming here, with okay, just there was a camera and everything. He's like proper screen actor. And his double had to move like him. Rafe's not a young guy, so he doesn't move like a young, spry guy. He moves like an older gentleman. He had these sword fights and everything. And it was really interesting. His double had to mimic Ray Fiennes, the way he walks, the way he moves, the way he stands, and he has this kind of presence. And that's a big part of being a stunt double, is being able to mimic the body language, because otherwise when you cut from the double back to the actor, the body language can be very jarring, and it breaks the illusion. So and all of the stuff in the movies nowadays with the stuntmen, they do face replacement. So you have the double just has some dots drawn on the face. They try to get someone who looks as similar as possible, just makes it easier for the CGI people. And often it might just be a few shots where they have to use the face replacement. Sometimes you can just get away with it if it's a wide angle or whatever. They don't need to bother with it because it's a lot of work mapping the actor's face onto your face. I had to do that on a film called Morbius. I was doubling Matt Smith. That was a Marvel project. It was like vampires in the Marvel universe. And Matt Smith, he has this swagger to the way that he moves. And the stunt coordinator is like, you see how I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. He's kind of got this white boy kind of, he's London. He's a London lad and stuff, and he's got that kind of swagger, and he's very confident and everything. And so that was a big part of my performance, not just the action and doing the stunts and getting thrown around all over the place, but moving like him, looking like him, all of that.
And how do you train or keep fit for these kind of roles?
So daily practice, I would say the flexibility is the one that you just can't skip. Keeping yourself flexible, because that saves you from injury. And it's a mix of weightlifting, cardio, and martial arts. I mean, martial arts it's all encompassing because it's strength, balance, flexibility, timing, everything. So martial arts is a very great, I always say to everyone, it's a fantastic form of exercise. And plus you learn how to defend yourself, which I think is an important skill to have. But yeah, daily training, fights, choreography is obviously different from real martial arts. In real martial arts, you're just looking to go from A to B as quickly as possible without telegraphing your movement at all, so your opponent doesn't see it. In screen fighting, it's different. You want to make the movements as big as possible and make it as obvious as possible so the audience can see it, right? Because you're doing fight scenes for, you know, the average person who is not a martial arts expert, and they can't really tell the difference between this or that. So everything has to be exaggerated and obviously filmed in such a way that there is it makes sense. But I would say that the real art of screen fighting is being able to tell a story through the fights. And that's really what divides like great action movies and great martial art films, classics, from just your mediocre
and it was Jackie
film.
Chan who was the sort of forerunner of these fight scenes.
Yeah.
And I think you said that quite a lot of Hollywood actors like really study him. Like I think you said you worked with John Cusack and Adrian Brody, and he was like their hero.
Yeah. So the first day, this was on Dragon Blade. So it's a great film. It's the theme is Romans. They think historically Romans may have got as far as Western China because they dug some artifacts out in the ground there, which are legit. It's a historical kind of evidence that they think Romans may have got that far. So the movie plays on that idea, and John Cusack, he's this general. Rome has been usurped by this evil emperor, which was played by Adrian Brody, and John Cusack is the general. He's got control of the army, and he's kind of been, you know, thrown out of Rome because he was going up against the evil emperor. And then he's got his army and he's traveling across China, comes to this town, and they're like, they've got no water, no food or anything. They're like, look, we've got to take this town, take its resources. And Jackie Chan is the mayor of the town. And he comes out and says, look, instead of having a big battle, let's just settle this man to man. We'll do a duel. And like, if you win, you can come take the town. If I win, then you leave. And the fight ends up in a draw, and they become friends. And then, you know, Adrian Brody eventually, he comes across and invades the town, and there's all of this kind of action and stuff. But what was great about that movie is that the fight coordinator played on Roman martial arts versus Chinese martial arts. And there's a scene halfway through the film where you can see me, where we're friends and we're feasting and celebrating. And we're like, let's see which martial art's the best, you know. And I had this scene where I've got like the big Roman shield and a short sword. It's a stick because we're friends, so it's like a stick that's like you know, covered in woven cloth. And then he's got a sword, but it's got the scabbard on it, so of course we don't hurt each other. And then it was a duel to see whose fighting style is superior. But they'd have to kind of have this very much like Roman kind of look to it versus the Chinese look. And it was really fun. But John Cusack is a martial arts expert. Yeah, he's been practicing kickboxing for 20 years or longer with Benny the Jet. So Benny the Jet was a very famous kickboxer actually, and had a fight scene with Jackie Chan in a movie called Meals on Wheels. And I think another movie as well, a couple of movies, Benny the Jet has fought Jackie. And he was considered the greatest kickboxer in like the 60s and 70s, American guy. And he's John Cusack's coach, has been John Cusack's coach for many years. And he was there on set as well. So, and I'm a massive Benny the Jet fan, so I got to meet him, got to meet John. And yeah, he was always on set. He'd be, you know, doing his scenes and his lines and stuff, but he'd be watching us, the stunt guys train, and he'd come over and he'd ask for tips and stuff. And he would always get involved with, you know, the martial arts practice and wanting to do as much as possible himself. He had a double, but actually John did most of his stuff on that film. And Adrian, when Adrian came over, he he walked into the studio, we were there training, and he'd never met Jackie before in person. And he's a huge Jackie Chan fan. I think a lot of, Jackie Chan, he stands alone in his kind of like legendary status, like Bruce Lee or something, of being someone that was just so pivotal for action and cinema and everything. He kind of stands in his own category, really, as in, you've got A-listers and then you've got people like Jackie Chan, like total legend. So yeah, Adrian walked into the studio, and then Jackie like comes across the studio and he's like, "Hi, Adrian Brody, thank you for coming." And Adrian was just like, "Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Oh my, I'm such a fan. I'm such a fan." And it was just weird seeing, Adrian Brody's an Oscar-winning A-list actor, but he was like starstruck, completely starstruck meeting Jackie. And that's, yeah, it's a funny thing, but Jackie, he's just so down to earth. It just does. He just takes it in his stride, just laughs it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't you say after some fight scenes he was coming along and like hoovering people or something?
Yeah, that was on Chinese Zodiac. We had this scene in this barn, and it was like full of hay and dust and everything, and it were these two jeeps, and we were fighting like in and out of the cars, like through the boot and with the seat belts and everything, and we got totally filthy. And at the end, Jackie's just like, we're like, cut, and then Jackie's like, they're trying to, the costume department's trying to clean us off, and Jackie's like, "We haven't got time for that." Grabs a Hoover, and he's just literally like hoovering us down because we were filthy. Yeah, and that was a long day. We shot all into the night there, and at the end, Jackie's like, we're all dead on the floor, and Jackie's still on his feet. He's like, "Right, let's go, guys, come on, one more round. I'm going to buy everyone pizza." And he's just amazing, just endless energy and enthusiasm, and very, like I said, very similar to Tom. Tom's the same, just non-stop, day and night, endless amount of energy. So passionate about filmmaking, living and breathing cinema, and knows how to tell a story on camera.
Is it true that Tom Cruise like gets up at 5 a.m. and sort of works out as well for like 2 hours before he even gets onto set?
Yeah, religiously. Yeah, and he has a mobile gym in the back of a truck, and it's got all the latest. He's got a running machine that takes the weight off of your knees. Apparently, it's used by NASA astronauts, and all the best high tech stuff. We always, as a stuntman, we always joke about Tom. We say that if he was a stuntman, he'd be the best stuntman in the world. Like, so overqualified because of his celebrity status and everything. He can train with the best of the best, like with the Navy SEALs and with the American Air Force and all of this. He's got 6.5 minute free dive, breath hold. He can do acrobatics in helicopters, riding motorbikes, everything.
Flies.
He's very much into his vehicles. His stunt coordinator, Wade Eastwood, is an expert in anything with wheels, wings, propellers. And then you've got the fight coordinator, Ruda, who's the martial arts expert. And they're such a great team all together. And I think that's how they managed, 7 and 8. Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, the stunts and the action that they managed to pull off on that, it's just because of that great team. It's all teamwork. Tom comes in with an idea, and then Wade and Ruda have to make it a reality. And he'll come in, with there's a scene with the biplanes in Final Reckoning with the yellow biplanes. It was just like, for anyone else, I think it would be unfilmable. But for Tom and his team, they made it happen. And that scene is just completely crazy. No one's ever would even think of attempting something like that with an actor as well, with Tom on the wing like that and doing those scenes. So,
can you describe to me the scenes you're in Final Reckoning?
Yeah, so it's a scene. So I play a Russian snowtrooper, like Russian special forces, and it's a scene in a cabin about halfway through the film. And Tom's not in the scene, but it's Pom, Tarzan, like the other cast, and the cabin catches fire. So that was the most difficult element that we were dealing with. You know, we had Simon Pegg there as well. It was all of the supporting cast. At that moment, I think Tom's on a submarine, and we're trying to get a code over to him. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'll try not to spoil it. But so this scene, because of the fire element, and it had to be real fire because CGI fire always looks funky. The main issue was extracting the smoke out of the set. So we're in the studio. This was in London, and they'd have the cabin, and the roof was like cut out with extractor fans. Between every take, we'd have to film, cut, take the smoke out. So it's an arduous process and expensive. And we rehearsed this scene, and we made changes to it. It's basically 3 separate fights that all happening at the same time. So it's very complicated because in the background of this fight is this fight, you know, and in the background of that fight is that fight. So everything had to match up perfectly, like this perfectly choreographed dance. And we're in the flames with all the fire. So we've got fire retardant gear on, gel all over our faces. Plus we've got the masks on between takes. So the place is filling up with flames and smoke, and it's all done with gas lines, which everything's soaking wet as well. You've got people coming in, spraying down all the furniture, everything, so everything stays completely wet, so nothing will catch fire. You've got the gas lines, which have all been constructed in such a way that the fire starts here, boom, spreads up the ceiling, boom, across the table and up the walls. All looks really cool and legit, and then they can switch it off just like that. Fire goes away, they come in. Everything, the safety and all of that, everyone knows where the fire's going to be, when it's going to start, where it's going to go off, the actors, all of that, because you've got 4 actors, 5 actors I think it was, and 3 stuntmen, all in this confined space with fire. And we were in these costumes, these snow gear costumes, and oh my God, I was drinking so much water between takes, completely drenched. But it wasn't the heat, it was the smoke that was the worst. Yeah. We'd have the mask on, it'd be like 3, 2, 1, action, take the mask off, film, ba 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 ba, and the place is like black with smoke, cut, put the mask back on, everyone's in masks, they extract the smoke again, and it was like that for just weeks and weeks on end. I would say it was probably in my top 3 hardest scenes to ever film.
And how long is the scene in the actual movie? It's probably like
well, there's a lot of dialogue and stuff, but from that action kicking off, maybe 4 minutes, something like that.
And you're rehearsing that for weeks, for 4 minutes.
Oh, we worked on that. Yeah, we worked on that for months and made all the changes, and then bringing the actors in, having the actors rehearse, and then Tom comes and looks at it, and then the director looks at it, and then they make changes again, they make changes again, they make changes again, and it's all about story. It's all about selling it in the story. And that scene is intercut with Tom having a knife fight on a submarine, and the editor had to put these 2 fights together, and there's some other dialogue scenes as well that are all intercut. It all has to make sense to the audience, it all has to flow well, it has to be exciting and dynamic, it has to build, it has to have a crescendo, there has to be this real threat of danger. And it was a lot of work, but it paid off. It's a great scene. Yeah. I think it's the best scene in the movie. I'm a little bit biased, maybe, but it really turned out well. And at the end of that scene, you can see me fighting Pom, and I've got her in a chokehold, and then I go through a bookcase, and they rigged this up with hundreds of hollow books, paper books that weighed nothing, and then the bookcase is all plywood, and you score it. So much fun. I love that. It was just go flying through it, and it looks really cool, looks really amazing and dangerous, but actually it was just really easy.
Just like
fun.
Paper,
Yeah. But the thing is with movies is sometimes you can have a scene that looks on camera like really easy to do, but it was a nightmare. And sometimes you have stuff that was a nightmare, but looks, on camera, you never know what you're going to get yourself into. And it's mostly about the costume. Whenever I go for a fitting for a film, I'm like, right, let's see the shoes, let's see the clothes. And then I'm like, no, those boots are way too big, way too heavy. You can expect me to be doing, 14 hours of fighting in those shoes. Nope. Then the costume department's like, right, okay, well, because we had on mission, it was like military gear, right? So these big snow boots and everything. And so then they had to make imitation boots that were like, a quarter of the weight, and then the costume as well, because originally it was all like padded out. And it's like, no, you're gonna have to strip all the lining out of that because we're gonna be boiling. So it's the costume and then the set, and you get to the set and then you start to look around the set and you start to think, right, all the furniture has to be padded out. So then they come in, and because you don't want to catch your head on the corner of a table or anything like that. So it's all foam padded. You can't see it in the movie. Even stuff like pots and pans, they're foam. They were hitting each other in the face with them. You add the sound effect and it looks like it's metal, but it's all foam. We had foam kettles, knives, everything. The whole thing in all the kitchen, everything was foam, because people get thrown, across the table, like into the sink and everything. It's kind of like a playground for adults, really. And when Tom gets in there, he's just like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. We're gonna shoot here, boom, boom, and then we're going to go through this window and all of that. Yeah, it's fun.
It's just like adult games, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you watch a film like that, you'd never know that amount. You'd never think about it, do you? Because it's just so well rehearsed, as you say. You would never even dream that it.
No, and all the tricks and stuff that they do. Yeah, there's just lots of little tricks. I go through a table that was glass, but it just explodes. And it's sugar glass, and everything is plywood, and it's all designed to crumble and not splinter, because if it splinters, there's like blades in the wood and stuff like that. And they've got special materials for all of this, and it's a serious science.
So how long were you there filming that particular scene?
So I was backwards and forwards for 2 years.
Wow.
For that scene. Once we got filming, I think we did maybe a month.
Wow.
Maybe 6. No, it was more than that. Tell a lie. Probably more like 2 months of solid filming for the scene, but it was months of rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just trying to figure out how it would work with so many actors and so many elements in one scene. Gunfights, knives, like everything, hand-to-hand combat. Just, really big action.
Do you ever have to go back and do more training to sort of appear, or is it all just covered in rehearsals for the movie? Or is there like a training course for stuntmen?
Yeah, like we do. You might do a little bit of a camp, like if they have time with the actors. So if you're lucky, you might get a couple of weeks where they'll get everybody doing a lot of choreography that's either what you're actually going to be doing on the day or very similar, particular moves and stuff for the actors and the stuntmen, and the doubles working with the actors and kind of seeing like where they'll step in and step out, seeing what the actor is capable of.
Right.
Like Pom, she is a Taekwondo expert, so I think she did almost everything. Got great kicks and stuff. And then, you just have to see and also what the actor's willing to do. And also, if the actor gets injured, it delays production. So sometimes you have to take the workload off of the actor with the double, if you can give them a rest, because those guys, they're just one scene to next scene to next scene.
Sure.
They're just, they're exhausted, and it's a lot of work for them. But Tom does like the actors doing as much as possible, and the actors, they all try to keep up with Tom as well, because Tom does everything himself. So no one wants to back down. Everyone's like, well, if Tom's doing it, then we'll do it, and get stuck in with all the stunts and stuff. So yeah.
And did you have many personal interactions with Tom Cruise, or was it just sort of mainly just when you saw him on set? Yeah,
Tom, because he's producing as well, and then he's working with Chris McHugh, the director, very closely. McHugh's also writing, and he's pumping out the script and making adjustments. Tom's working with him, but he came in. He'd come in a couple of times, and he'd just be with us and be like, right, come over here, boom, 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 right. And he's like, no, I like this. Maybe they put the camera here and stuff. And him and McHugh have a really great dynamic going on. And McHugh's done the last 3, maybe 4 missions. He came on in Rogue Nation, maybe, Christopher McQuarrie. And yeah, McHugh understands action, understands how to film it. You know, a lot of directors don't, but for a film like Mission, the director really has to know how to shoot action. So, yeah.
And do you know what your next project is going to be?
No idea. No idea.
Do you have an agent which tries to get you work, or is it just through your contacts? Or
no, it's through my contacts now. I've had agents in the past and stuff for the acting, but for stunts, you work with the stunt coordinators, and it's like a family, very close knit group, because obviously you're putting your life in other people's hands. So there's this. It's a very tight knit group, like a tribe almost, the stunt community. Yeah, and I work with the fight coordinators, the stunt coordinators. They think that if I'm suitable for this or that, they'll just call me up. The funniest thing about Tom, though, was every day he would come to work in his helicopter. So
of course he would.
So, you know, we'd be going through London traffic for, you know, an hour and a half across the city. Tom's just like overhead. You know, it takes him like 10 minutes from his house outside of London, and he doesn't have a pilot. He has the license to pilot himself, so it's like his car. It flies across London, and it's mad when you really think about it. It's mad because there's 5 airports in London, and that's very restricted airspace. So to be able to do that in your own helicopter, the licenses and all of that, and the permission that he gets, but he's Tom Cruise, you know. Yeah. So and he'd turn up, you know, in the morning, boom, land, here comes Tom, and then boom, he's gone. In the afternoon, there he goes. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, living in a different universe, but he's someone who really has created their own reality, and he's just so confident, so focused, and you really have to like live up to, like, no one's working harder than him on the set. Yeah. No one's working harder than him, so there's just no excuses. And yeah, and that's why he's never made a legend, never made a bad movie. I mean, his filmography is just like hit, you know, for decades. Yeah. I
know you were doing a little bit of martial art teaching around this area to kids. Are you still doing that, or have you not got time at the moment?
No, yeah, I still run the gym. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Kids, adults, anyone who wants to learn.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the name of the gym?
Oh, it's just at my house.
Oh, just at your house?
Yeah.
Cool.
I've got a space that I've converted into a dojo, and yeah, just anyone who wants to come and train, very welcome. Okay. And it keeps me in shape as well, because training on your own it gets boring after a while. So I found, there's lots of people locally into martial arts, and there's a couple of martial arts gyms here in Lagos as well. So I know all the guys here, and we train together, keep each other on our toes. Yeah.
Great. Well, Paul, thank you so much. It's just been another fascinating talk. It always is with you, and hugely appreciate you coming and talking to us today. And so give Tom my love when you next see him.
Sure.
Okay, well, thanks. That's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our podcast channel, and also pick up the next copy of the magazine, which will also include the highlights of this chat with Paul. Thank you and goodbye.